Auto-scaling is one of the coolest features of Amazon Web Services. Auto-scaling really helps our infrastructure to adjust according to the throughput needs. So when there is a high throughput, accordingly it adds servers. When the traffic goes down, it automatically terminates a few instances there. It is a cost-effective way of scaling applications in cloud. This video, let's see each and every aspect of auto-scaling with a demo. Before getting into the demo, first let's understand the concepts of autoscaling group and the terminology of it. Autoscaling group is a logical group of EC2 instances which participates in autoscaling. Autoscaling group has certain attributes like minimum size. When we go and create a group, we can specify minimum size, which is minimum number of EC2 instances the group should always have. We can have a maximum size. That's a maximum limit up to which autoscaling can scale our instances. Plus, we also have desired capacity. So this desired capacity value is decided at runtime based on the load put on this environment. Desired capacity changes based on the scaling policies we set. We're going to tell auto scaling when to add servers and when to remove servers. We do that with help of scaling policies. That scaling policy decides what should be the desired capacity. According to the desired capacity, auto scaling makes sure the group has the desired number of EC2 instances to serve the load. The next important concept to discuss is launch configuration. Launch configuration is a template which is used by autoscaling group for adding new instances to the group. See, for example, just adding a simple EC2 instance may not be helpful for us. Why? Because the EC2 must contain all our applications and the packages required for serving the client serving the clients. So that is where launch configuration comes into picture. We need to tell auto scaling group that, hey, this is a launch configuration, and if you want to add a new instance, get the details from this configuration and accordingly add that new instance to the group. And in our case, right, this launch configuration is going to have certain details like this. This configuration will contain the AMI details, Amazon machine image, that needs to be used for launching new instance. We also need to specify the security groups. Then we have to mention what should be the volume type and what should be the volume size of that new instance. Even IAM role, sometimes your EC2 is talking to, let's say, S3. So EC2 might need permissions to talk to S3. In such cases, we create role and assign them. Even that should be mentioned in case of launch configuration. And the private key. For SSH into the servers, we need private key. Those details we need to mention part of the launch configuration. Autoscaling group uses this launch configuration for launching a new instance into the group, which is kind of an instance which has our web application and all its dependencies required to serve the customers. Let's log into AWS Management Console and see the demo of setting up launch configuration and creating a auto-scaling group. This is our AWS Management Console. Let me show the options from where we can set up launch configuration and auto-scaling group. Let's open this. So under EC2 dashboard, we have this auto-scaling groups and launch configurations. So here we should go and create a launch configuration. Just to give you idea what exactly launch configuration contains, let's quickly go and see that. See, when you go and set up a launch configuration, it expects the AMI. Probably your AMI should contain your application, then the type, obviously the name. For demo purpose, I'm just giving it as demo. It also must have IAM role, correct? And you can put some advanced details like if you want to have some user data scripts and so on, you can put that also. Then as you said, right, we need to mention the size of volume and type of volume, the security groups, and so on. So this is what basically launch configuration contains. This is used by autoscaling group for adding instances into the group. let's first go and set up a custom Amazon machine image which contains our application. Let's cancel this. Go to instances, launch instance. I'm going with Amazon machine image there, T2 micro. I need one instance in this case. Go to advanced details, and I'm just pasting a small shell script which is going to install Apache and which is going to just create a simple index.html file on this Apache. This is going to be our application which is behind that autoscaling group, and we are enabling this Apache on reboot. This is very important. Why? Because when autoscaling launches new instance, this Apache should come automatically, otherwise health checks can fail and it can terminate your instance and it can start new one, terminate. This can go ahead like this. After that, we are making sure that Apache server is coming up. Go to storage. I'm just leaving all defaults here. Let's add few tags. Name, let me call this one as for ASG, which is auto scaling group. This one I'm going with accept all traffic. Let me cross check that. Yeah, so review, launch it. Keyword is hurry there. Launch the instance. So I launched this instance to take a custom Amazon machine image. Our EC2 server is up and running. Let's verify our user data script is properly executed without any issues. Let's grab this public IP there and hit it. Yeah, so it says welcome to Java Home Cloud. Okay, this image we're going to use part of launch configuration. So come back. The very first step, next one, is to set up launch configuration. Let me delete this old one, not required for us. Okay, let's go and create a fresh launch configuration. This time, okay, sorry, we didn't take the image, right? Let's take the AMI from this EC2 instance. So actions, image, so I'm calling it as Java Home Cloud AMI. Let me put the same description there. Create the image. So here, create it. The request has taken and this image is created asynchronously in the background. If you go and check AMIs, yeah, see that. Let's wait for some time. Once it's available, we can use it for our launch configuration. The image is available now. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a launch configuration. So come back to this screen. So let me do it from scratch. See, we are in auto scaling group dashboard where we have launch configuration. So from there I'm saying create auto scaling group. So when you say create auto scaling group, it is of two steps here. The very first step is create launch configuration. Launch configuration is the template, as I said earlier also, which contains the details about how to launch a new instance when there is a need of adding new instances to the group. Correct. So let's go and say create launch configuration first. Now I don't want to go with existing AMIs because that may not have my application installed. For that I created one custom AMI in my case. So go to this my AMIs. So this is the one which we just created. So select that. This has our application installed and the type of EC2 instance we want to use. Name it. I'm calling it as a Java Home Cloud Launch configuration. I don't have any IAM role to set now, so I'm leaving it empty. Even I don't want to set anything in advanced details. Go to storage. I'm fine with all default values here. A security group, I want to go with a security group which accepts all traffic. So review it and finally create the launch configuration. we're done with launch configuration. The next step is to create the auto scaling group itself. Let's name it. I'm calling it as Java Home Cloud Auto Scaling Group. So group size, as I said, right? Auto scaling group has minimum and maximum. So let me put 2 as minimum instances, and also decide the network where you want to set up all your EC2 instances. So basically in real time we have to create a custom VPC and subnets. So in this demo I'm going with default VPC, which is kind of ready to work VPC, and also select the subnets where your auto scaling is going to add instances. I want to spread my instances across multiple zones and multiple subnets because of high availability. It's always good to have minimum 2 zones, and select advanced details. In this case, auto scaling can be integrated with load balancing. We can easily integrate the auto scaling group with load balancer. If you see this illustration, so this is the auto scaling group, and this auto scaling group can be integrated with a load balancer. Whenever there's a new instance added to the group, that is automatically added to this load balancer. Now I want to integrate that load balancer. In this case, let's select receive traffic from one or more load balancers. So I have already created a load balancer. If you want to know how to create load balancer, you can check my other video on Elastic Load Balancer. I will add that link to the description page in the YouTube. This is the one I'm interested in. If you have application load balancer or other network load balancer, then this is the option we should go with. And coming to health checks, right? So health checks are again very important in auto scaling group as well, because if any instance is unhealthy, auto scaling will terminate that instance and it replaces that instance with a brand new instance using that launch configuration. So health check type, we have a couple of options. When you say EC2, if it will check directly the health of EC2, if the EC2 is up and running, it assumes that it is healthy. But in our case, I don't want to check my EC2 is healthy or not. I want to check my application is healthy or not, and I want to do that with help of ELB. So in ELB we already configured health checks. This auto scaling group uses same health checks for making sure the applications are healthy. If not, it terminates that. Let me go and show you what kind of health checks we configured in load balancer. So go to load balancers. This is a load balancer we are integrating with. If you go and check the health details, the ping target is this. So we are pinging HTTP protocol 80 as a port number, and this is the path we are pinging on that EC2 instance. If you guys remember, we added user data where we created one index.html. We are sending a request to that index.html. If it responds back, then it is treated as healthy, otherwise it is treated as not healthy. Okay, now health check grace period. So what exactly it does is your EC2 instance might take a couple of minutes to initialize your application. So before that, we should not perform any kind of health checks. If we do so, health checks fails and there is a risk of terminating that instance even before your application is up and running. So because of that, we need to set this health check grace period. A default is 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes. In our case, probably we need 10-20 seconds for Apache server to come up. And this health check grace period, right, it starts after your EC2 becomes running. Let's change this one as 20 seconds. Let's say in your case your application takes 5 minutes for initialization, and make sure you're giving that time and you're blocking health checks until that. So these things I'm ignoring. So instance protection, we can enable this where uh, auto scaling will not terminate all new instances which is added to the group, but I'm leaving it now. Let's go to next one where we configure scaling policies. Auto scaling can be used for two use cases. One is to keep your group with a fixed size. Let's say I want a group with 10 EC2 instances always, then we also can use auto scaling group for that. In case out of the 10, if couple of instances becomes unhealthy, auto scaling will automatically replace those two instances with brand new instances. That is one use case. The other use case is scale, adjust the capacity based on your traffic needs. So we want to scale between, this is the minimum size, this is the maximum size. So I'm keeping it as 5 as a maximum size, and I want to use simple scaling policies like this. One says increase the size, one says decrease the size. So using this, tell your auto scaling group when to increase the size, when to add new instances, and also tell when to decrease the size, when to remove EC2 instances. And a side note, auto scaling is free, and if auto scaling is launching EC2 instances, AWS charge for those resources, and auto scaling itself is free. Let's go and set the scaling policies. Let's go and tell auto scaling when to increase the size. These names you can change. Coming to this execute policy, we need to create alarms for this. We need to set an alarm, and when that alarm fires, it takes this particular action. So let's go and add new alarm for this one. We also can set notifications when alarm fires, but I'm not doing that right now. So we can choose different metrics here. You can set alarms based on average CPU, maximum, minimum, sum, and so on. Even not only CPU utilization, you can set up these things on disk reads, disk writes, and disk read operations, and so on. Our example, I'm going with average CPU utilization. So whenever average CPU utilization goes above, let's say 50%, I want to fire this alarm, and when this alarm fires, I want to add instances to the group. So there is at least one consecutive period of 5 minutes in sense, right? If average CPU is above 50%, above or equals to 50% continuously for 5 minutes, then this alarm fires. These things you can adjust according to your need. You also can give a different name here, but I'm going with the default name. Create it. When this alarm fires, so what action we want to take? So I want to say add 3 more instances to that. We also can have step scaling policies, like we can say add step when CPU goes above 70%, add 2 more, 90%, 2 more. Likewise, we can scale the instances in steps, but I'm going with simple scaling policy in this case. So likewise, let's go and set up a decrease group size. Let's tell when to decrease the group size. Let's create an alarm for this as well, and whenever average CPU utilization is less than, let's say, 30% for one consecutive period of 5 minutes or whatever according to your need, that's alarm we created. So in this case, right, I want to remove the instances. Let's say I want to remove a couple of instances in this case. Again, scaling down can be done in steps, but to keep this example simple, I'm going with simple scaling policies here. So next, go and configure notifications. If you want to receive notifications for certain events in auto scaling, you can do that. See this, we can say add notifications and tell the SNS topic using which we want to get alerts. Select the events you want to listen for. Accordingly, you'll get notifications, but I'm not going with that also in this case. Next one is tags. Let's call this one as Java Home ASC auto scaling group. This is the tag we're adding, and there is one more extra field called as tag new instances. When you select this one, these tags are applied for EC2 instances which are launched by auto scaling group. It would be nice to select this option because our instances gets tags by doing this selection. Review, if you want to change anything in this, go and change it. Otherwise, let's go and create it. The auto scaling group is created for us. Let's close this and let's go and check this auto scaling group. See that minimum we said 2 and maximum we said 5. So minimum is 2, immediate desired capacity is 2. It has to go and launch 2 instances there. Let's go and see that. See that it launched automatically 2 instances for us according to this desired capacity. When there is a scale out policy executed, for example, when CPU goes above 50% for constantly 5 minutes, the desired capacity changes. When the desired capacity changes, auto scaling group automatically launches new instances to meet the desired capacity. And when the scale in happens, again same thing, it removes the EC2 instances to meet the desired capacity. Let's go and verify our application is working. So to test it, we need to grab the DNS record of load balancer. So go there. So this is our load balancer integrated with auto scaling. Let's grab this. So open a new tab here, put that link. Yeah, so this is what we deployed on our custom AMI, which is part of launch configuration. Now let's go and check our scaling policies are actually working. So let's go back to auto scaling group here. Under auto scaling group, let's select our auto scaling group, and you can check scaling policies. We have a couple of policies which says decrease group size, other one says increase group size. So there is a straight option to test this increase group size and decrease group size. By getting into these actions, we can execute, and that metric value, let me put it as 70. So above 50%, right, it's going to fire this alarm. Let's execute that. See that. So according to that policy execution, it is adding it's changing the desired capacity, and when the desired capacity changes, it automatically adds new instances for us. You can go and check this activity history. Let's refresh that. Let's wait for a while. You can see this. There is a auto scaling activity happen, which is launching new instance, and once it is healthy available, that is automatically added to the group to handle that extra throughput coming from the clients. Okay, let's refresh. Yeah, so this is coming up. So along with this kind of auto scaling, we also can do scaling based on a schedule. So there is option called as scheduled actions. So maybe let's say you always have high traffic in certain schedules. That would be a good option to go and set up that schedule here and make sure what is your desired capacity, and according to that schedule, auto scaling will adjust your capacity for handling that extra throughput. So thank you. Let's see the remaining concepts in other videos.